Hi everyone, and welcome to my top 10 parks in the world. If you consider 21 countries as the world, as that's all the countries that I've been to in the world. And not all of them have I been to parks in, but that's another story. Now my parks, as far as I rate them in this list, should be mentioned that they are based on a thrill component and also a enthusiast component and also a theme component as well. I do like immersive theming, as I will point out in my list, but I also, based on the fact that most of these parks I visited on my own as an adult, that should be taken into account as far as how this list works out. So you could pretty much consider whatever is at the top as being the park that's most friendly and welcoming to the enthusiast crowd, or at least those of us that generally sometimes find ourselves at a park just because we want to ride the roller coasters. So that's kind of the chief sort of rating quotient that I've used here. All right, is that enough of an intro for a list of parks that really there's just an ubiquitous amount on YouTube already? Yes, so let's get down to it. So coming in at the bottom of the list is FujiQ Highland. Now I had a very interesting experience at this park. It definitely did not live down to its reputation for lines. The lines are ridiculous in this park, and it's also a very small park at that, but we all know why we want to go to this park and why I ended up going this time last year, which was for the Big Four. They're ridiculous, over-the-top roller coasters. And really, for perspective, this park and Nagashima Spa Land are the only ones in Japan that really have a big component of thrilling rides to offer. And both of them are relatively small from a North American park perspective. So there's not much to do at FujiQ Highland. But why would it rate so high on this list? Obviously, the roller coasters, two of which are in my really best ever in the world list as well. But that being said, there's a real reason why this park ranks so highly, and that is the super scary haunted hospital, which is an incredible attraction and probably the best scare attraction in the world. If it was just a park based on this attraction, I probably would end up having it still in this list. It is that good. I did it on my own, which was against the recommendations of the staff and people that were also doing the attraction as well. But needless to say, it's basically like walking into your own personal movie for half an hour. It was unbelievable. I can't wait to do it again. I do want to go back to FujiQ just to experience it. But yeah, it was incredible. FujiQ is a very frustrating and sort of back and forth park. It's not without its issues. It's very pricey. The fast passes, while convenient, are really ridiculously priced. But overall, just for the view of Mount Fuji from the park, it's really just an incredible park and definitely deserves its place on this list. Now coming in at number 9 is a park that I only visited for the first time 2 years ago. A quirky little park that was originally owned by a private family that had big ambitions back in the day, which hasn't really been lost on this park in the long run. It has quite a lot of character and charm. It's very welcoming, really getting to the point of being a world-class selection of roller coasters. This park is Carowind's, a really just world-class park as far as an amusement park goes. Now, really Cedar Fair left their mark on this park as they have any of the ones that they took over with the ownership of from Paramount Parks back in the 90s. They really put their stamp on this park when they opened their second entrance and opened with it Fury 325, which figures very highly on my own personal favorite coaster list. So yes, it's definitely an incredible park just for the two coasters. I have yet to ride Copperhead Strike, but I'm definitely, from what people have said online and all the reviews, that it really has just brought this park to another level. I just like the atmosphere of this park. It's not huge, but it was just something that I really didn't expect much from, but I just had a tremendous time. I liked the guests, the fellow guests in the park were very friendly. The staff and operations were excellent. It was very convenient getting around. The food selection was decent. It's very similar to any of those old holdover Paramount, now Cedar Fair parks as far as how they are laid out and feel. It's not as, say, theming intensive as, say, a Wonderland or a maybe Kings Island, but that's probably the closest to what this park feels like to me. But yes, overall, I just love this park so much. If it didn't have Fury, I'm not so sure it would figure on this list, but it does, so therefore, it does get on this list. And Afterburner is also a great coaster as well. Now we're off to park number 8, a very unusual park. Now, what is the feel of this park? Well, if you know those like sci-fi movies where you have some weird mysterious substance like an ooze or like a liquid that anything it touches, it just brings magically to life. Okay, you don't know that? Okay, well, besides the point, that's what F-telling really feels like to me. It's just this weird fairy tale organic sort of environment spawned out of its location. And yeah, everything is just sort of organically grown out of the theming. I don't know, it's really hard to explain, but if you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. It has excellent, like world-class dark rides of various generations, which I do like, kind of like a Disneyland feel. And as some of you know, this is a park that has rumored to have started Disney World for what it is today, or Disneyland at least, as Walt did visit at one time. That being said, it's still got that old world feel to it, combined with some world-class attractions. Baron 1898, while not one of my favorite roller coasters overall in the world, it is definitely probably my favorite themed roller coaster, and that gives you an idea of what the attractions overall in this park are all about. I visited in the winter time, so I didn't get to experience everything about what this park has to offer, so if I was there in the summer and I had more time, because I didn't have enough time to actually experience the whole thing, I definitely feel like it would rank even higher on this list. F-telling, if you're in the area, is not to be missed. Now, I like a bit of a controversy, so number 7 on my list is definitely going to be one of those. Now, a lot has been written about this park, and really, when anybody that knows that I've been there would figure that this park would probably rank at least at the top 3, if not highest overall. As for any of these lists, at least that I've seen, and for the park that I'm speaking of, it usually ranks number 1. Okay, it's Tokyo Disney Sea, and I did have a bit of an issue. Now, it may be because of the time that I went to the park, it was a little too busy. The park itself was just overloaded with people. We barely were able to get on any rides in the daytime, however, that did change over the course of the evening, so I did get to try the major attractions. This park is incredible. The theming definitely is the best in the world. There really is no argument when it comes to that. But that being said, I just don't know about the attractions when it comes down to whether or not they are just the best that the world has to offer at this point. Now they're getting on to being 20 years old. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, really kind of a schlocky presentation. Yes, it's interesting that you don't actually go underwater and the way that that whole setup is presented in the dark ride, but I honestly thought that the overall theme and the experience was better presented in the original at Walt Disney World many years ago. Journey to the Center of the Earth, for some, is still considered the best dark ride in the world. Personally, I don't think so. You're gonna have to give me something that's more than 3.5 minutes overall in the ride experience for me to consider the ride to be the number 1 dark ride in the world. Yes, it's completely immersive. Yes, the queue line is probably the best in the world as far as setting up or establishing the mood for the ride and just getting you into the preparation for it. But I just didn't feel like the overall ride experience left me just aghast and wanting more. I rode it twice and I'm not desperate to get back to it. Their Tower of Terror is also the tamest in the Disney chain as well. I don't know what it is about Japanese parks, because when they take their scare attractions so seriously, they don't really seem to like that big of a thrill when it comes to a roller coaster. At least that wasn't the feeling that I was getting with the Disney parks. And we're talking about a company that has created Mission Space, among other attractions, so we can't say that they're not into thrills. Completely incredible park, immersive, but just left me wanting a bit more. Maybe with another big roller coaster in it of some sort. Not something that's just a big thrill, but they definitely need something because they don't have any coaster other than the Flounders coaster that they have, which is for families. The park overall is perfect as it is, theming wise. It's just the ride component. I think for the price point and for amount that you're waiting for these things, I think that they just need one more big thrilling ride so to bring them back up to the level of which they were when they opened. So that's it, Tokyo Disney Sea number 7. Number 6 is the original indie park that had a big heart and big ambitions. A Luna park that was originally based in Cincinnati, Ohio, but in the mid-60s decided that their current location was a little too small for what their ambitions were. Now ownership has changed hands many times over the years and generations have passed, but this park's ambition to bring big thrills of a world-class level to draw international crowds has not been lost on them. And that park is Kings Island. Now we all know Kings Island as it is definitely a bucket list park for most of us, given that it includes the Beast, a world-class coaster, and many other world-class attractions have graced it over the years. Let's not forget the Bat, or Son of Beast for that matter, or Vortex. The list goes on, but yeah, this park, for what it is the mad scientist of theme parks, and that's why I like it. They tend to be a bit more experimental in what they want to deliver to the crowds, and that has been experienced in coasters like Son of Beast and the Beast, let alone the Bat, as I mentioned before. But the park also is just exquisitely themed as far as how its landscape is worked out. It is very easy to get around. It's a vast park with a lot of nuances to it for really what is a theme park with a more amusement park base to begin with. Now we all know its world-class collection of roller coasters, which will be complemented more this year by Orion, which I look forward to riding. So this park also has an amazing Halloween haunt event, which I definitely recommend to anybody that is interested in attending. Their attention to detail is just second to none. It really brings them up into the echelons of the Universal and Disney parks when it comes down to their haunt attraction. Overall experience, I just love it. I've gone 2 years in a row. I'll probably go again this year. For Cedar Point having a ridiculous line for their attraction at that time of year, Kings Island, as far as I'm concerned, is a way better alternative and actually a better overall experience. Kings Island, I've been going for 25 years and I hope to be going for another 25 more and beyond. It is a fantastic park and worth the visit. Continuing on to personal parks and also parks within the Cedar Fair chain, we have number 5. Now this park is pretty much the reason why I'm making this video in the first place. It is the first park that I ever visited. I actually went the year it was opened, and we are now getting on to many years that it has been opened. Now at that time, I did not have an idea that it would have such a major influence on me over the years and bring me to the points of the weepings of my accountant as I travel the world to experience other local parks, or parks for other locals. But that being said, Canada's Wonderland is my local park and it is number 5 on my list. It has one of the best centerpieces for a park in the world in Wonder Mountain, and also the park landscaping is probably one of the best in the world. If you've been there in the springtime and you've seen how this park has matured over the years, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's not about the actual structures that are built, but how the original vision has matured over time to one of the most gorgeous parks that you could ever experience just for that landscaping alone. Now, it's really not just about the landscaping for these parks, otherwise I'd have a different list. Why is this park ranked so highly? 10 years ago, I was part of a community of people that was griping about this park, as it really, even though the coaster count in the gates is very high, considering how many roller coasters most parks have, none of them were really world-class experiences. Well, that changed when Cedar Point took over. Now Yukon Striker opened last year and has brought it up to this echelon of world-class parks. 3 B&Ms in that time, and we know them very well. Leviathan, Behemoth, and the aforementioned Yukon Striker. They are world-class roller coasters that really brought this park to a different level that it had not experienced previously, where now international enthusiasts are coming to find out what it's all about. And it really should not leave many disappointed, because not only does it have those two aspects I also mentioned, but it also has one of the best flat ride selections in the world. And operations-wise, it's definitely a better run park than, say, your Six Flags parks. None of them figured on this list, by the way. It also has a great Halloween haunt event. Overall, Wonderland does a lot for what it offers throughout the year. It now has a great Winterfest event as well. So when it comes to amusement parks that offer a little bit more, Wonderland is really just at the top of the list when it comes to that. It's not something that it used to have years back, but now finally Canada has a theme park destination that globally people can look forward to visiting. When I think about the fourth park on my list, I think about perfect balance. Balancing my own needs for Disney Fright with my girlfriend's needs for Disney Light. And that is perfectly found at Disneyland Paris as far as I'm concerned. You have two of the best attractions in the Disney chain as icons of the brand, that being Space Mountain and also the Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, which is the best of the, as I said, the best. It's just the best of those rides. I just love the fact that it goes into that island in the middle of the lake. The design just showed the vision of what they had at the time, regardless of how this park had its troubles at the beginning of its life. Again, we're dealing with a park that has matured despite adversity into a very fully fleshed out and complementary offering of both thrill rides and family rides and medium thrills. There were many adults at the park at the time of our visit, so it had that sort of Disney feel from an adolescent perspective, but still being safe. So even though the ashtrays may be being stored in the Disney vaults, this park still ranks highly on my list from an adult perspective. The final Disney park on my list, and the best in the world as far as I'm concerned, is Shanghai Disney. Now, when I went to this park a year ago, it still had that fresh out of the wrapper, new car scent experience. And really, the thing that I did like about it was that all the attractions worked. So the Raging Rapids ride with the unique surprise in the cave, well, needless to say, it worked, unlike what we've experienced on Expedition Everest. Now you have a park that's really the perfect amalgamation of the modern perspective of a Disney park vis-a-vis Tokyo Disney Sea with what they want to offer in a Magic Kingdom experience. So you have a kind of reverse sort of idea as far as how the layout of the park works, which I just found very unique, given that the Tomorrowland section in Tron is on the left, and then you move around to the right to the Discovery Kingdom area, where you run into Pirates of the Caribbean and the Curse of the Black Pearl, which is, as far as I'm concerned, the best dark ride in the world. And also just the detail of this park is at a Tokyo Disney Sea level. It's just that immersive, but still familiar for the theming overall, unlike what Tokyo Disney Sea offers. I also just like the pure variety attractions that they had at this park. You obviously have the big ones that are mentioned already. You also have smaller attractions which have a unique feel and are unique to this park and very enjoyable upon themselves. Yeah, I just like this park a lot. It was very efficient and well run. The staff were super friendly. It definitely feels awkward in the sense that it's a very foreign type of Disney experience, but for those of you that have tried it, I definitely think it's the best in the world. It seems untouched and perfect, and they've just done it right, and it's unspoiled. I'm sure that's going to change over time, but I'm so glad that I got there, and I can't wait to go back. The final theme park on my list, and one that's really another controversy maybe for those of you that aren't expecting it to figure at the position that it is, but I have to not deny how much of an impression it left on me, and this is Fantasyland. Really, it has one of the ugliest entrances for a theme park in the world. It's just some weird bus station that it feels like in a brutalist area of Britain. But once you do pass those gates and the very, very friendly staff, and then descend the steps into this pit-like setting that it is situated in, well, you are immersed. And that's the thing about Fantasyland, is that it's definitely immersive. It has this weird catacomb-like sort of structure that it's built into, where attractions are built on top of attractions, which from a design perspective just left me in awe. And really, we all know the world-class attractions that it has. Would this park figure as high as it does without the inclusion of Klugheim, which it does have, which to me is one of the best immersive theming experiences in the world? I'm not so sure it would figure so high, but it does figure Klugheim, and that is why it's on this list. I just overall, with the punch of the attractions being at the level that they are with adult thrills, the incredible theming, and some of the best of its class type of attractions, such as Winges being the best spinning coaster in the world possibly, and also one of the best launch coasters in the world in Terran. This park leaves so much. Chappas as well, I gotta mention, the best log flume in the world that I've ever been on. The list goes on. Fantasyland, if you haven't been, you have to go. It is an incredible experience. I'm glad I went. I went in the Christmas season, and it still had a full complement of rides to offer. So really, Fantasyland, I felt intimidated by the characters there because I actually felt bad leaving there without giving one a hug. So the next time I'm there, I'm gonna be sure to do that. I'm just doing this to prove that I made it. I put the camera down and I just did it. It is too cold, as you can see, but this park, unbelievable. When I first learned how to drive, my sole preoccupation for doing so was to get to a park 6 hours from my home. And really, 25 years later, not much has changed. Despite the fact that I've gone throughout the world to various other parks, nothing has changed as far as my #1 park. And it really is the icon for enthusiasts when it comes down to the reason why we do this. And at the time that I first visited, this community didn't really exist or at least wasn't as buoyant and as vast and large of a community as it is today. What other park could I be talking about but the #1 park on everyone's bucket list if you haven't been there, and just really a bucket list park, or a #1 park for everyone on a yearly basis, and that has to be, of course, Cedar Point. Now, this park, with its perfect blend of amusement, thrills, and also theme park atmosphere, given the back section of the park, really has that perfect balance of theming and amusement park atmosphere. So it's sort of a hodgepodge of the two. But we all know its world-class selection of coasters, 3 of which are in my personal top list, being Maverick, Steel Vengeance, and Top Thrill Dragster. This park really does set the benchmark for thrills throughout the world. It's such a unique experience, and despite the seagull droppings mixing with the sea air and the mayflies and many other weird sort of foibles about the location of this park, including that ridiculous wait to get in on the causeway on certain weekends, it is a world-class attraction and become the world-class #1 destination for enthusiasts. It is our Disney World for enthusiasts, and that makes it the #1 park in the world for me. It's never let me down. It does have sometimes its frustrations. The wait times are getting somewhat exorbitant, but Cedar Point, to this day, is my #1 park. Thank you everyone for joining me on this list of my top 10 parks throughout the world. And as I said, it will change somewhat, probably by this time next year, so I look forward to doing another video. I don't anticipate doing them forever, but there are a couple that I still have to knock off before I have a definitive list of my 10 best in the world. Thanks for watching everyone. Subscribe, like, comment, do all the usual stuff of course, and of course enjoy the ride.